Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the stars streak past the view screen. 15 years had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Coalition, and sometimes he still couldn't believe how much had changed. The ship hummed quietly around him. A vessel built for exploration, not war. That was the rule now. No weapons meant for killing. No conflicts. No violence of any kind. Jake was 42 years old enough to remember Earth before the Coalition found them. He remembered competitive sports, action movies, and the stories his grandfather told about serving in the military. All of that was gone now, buried under treaties and regulations that the aliens insisted were for everyone's good. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," Lisa Martinez said from the communications station. She was his first officer, sharp and reliable. "It's coming from Refuge Station. The Caltharians are calling for help." Jake moved to her station. "Put it through." The audio crackled to life. Screams filled the bridge. Underneath the panic, a voice struggled to be heard. "This is Refuge Station. We are under attack. The Zarn are here. They're breaking through our defenses. Please, anyone, help us." "How far are we from their position?" Jake asked. Danny Price, the chief engineer, checked his console. 20 minutes at full speed. "Take us there. Maximum velocity." Jake turned to the back of the bridge where a tall, thin alien stood watching. Vryn was a council observer, assigned to human ships to make sure they followed the rules. His gray skin seemed to pale even further. "Observer Vryn, please notify the council. The Caltharians need immediate assistance." Vryn's large eyes blinked slowly. "The council will be informed. However, you understand that the treaty forbids aggressive action." Jake felt his jaw tighten. "Those are civilians being attacked." "The treaty is absolute," Vryn replied. "We do not engage in violence. Ever." The Liberty dropped out of faster-than-light travel 20 minutes later. The scene before them made Jake's stomach turn. Refuge Station hung in space. Its hull torn open in multiple places. 6 Zarn ships surrounded it, their dark metal hulls covered in strange symbols. Small fighter craft darted in and out of the station, carrying cargo pods filled with people. "They're taking them," Amy Watson said quietly. She was the ship's medical officer, her face pale as she watched the monitor. "They're kidnapping the entire colony." Kevin Ross slammed his fist on his console. The security chief was a big man with a quick temper, and right now he looked ready to explode. "We have weapons. We can stop this." "The treaty forbids it," Vryn said firmly. "We must wait for the council to respond." Jake watched another transport pod being loaded with Caltharian civilians. The Caltharians were a peaceful species, small and gentle. They had no way to fight back against the Zarn. "How long until the council responds?" "I have sent the emergency request," Vryn said. "They should answer within the hour." "An hour?" Lisa's voice rose. "Those people don't have an hour." Jake's hands gripped the edge of his command chair. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to act. The Liberty had weapons, defensive systems that could disable those Zarn ships. But the treaty was clear. Violence of any kind meant expulsion from the Coalition. It meant Earth would be alone again, cut off from the galaxy, possibly quarantined. "Hail the Zarn ships," Jake ordered. The view screen flickered. A Zarn commander appeared, its face hidden behind a dark helmet. "Human vessel. You will not interfere. Leave this area. You're attacking a Coalition station," Jake said. "Release those people." "Release those people." The Zarn's laugh was harsh. "The Coalition has no power here. Your treaty makes you weak. You can only watch." The transmission cut off. Kevin stood up from his station. "Captain, please. We can save them." Jake looked at his crew. Lisa's hands trembled over her controls. Danny had tears in his eyes. Amy was biting her lips so hard it was bleeding. These were good people, trained to help others, forced to stand and watch as innocents suffered. "Sit down, Kevin," Jake said quietly. "We wait for the council." The next hour was the longest of Jake's life. They watched the Zarn load transport after transport with Keltharians. They heard the screams over the open channels. They saw the station's population being stolen away. The Liberty's weapons stayed silent. Finally, the Council's response came through. Vrine listened to his private communication, his face unreadable. When he finished, he turned to Jake. The Council has reviewed the situation. And? Jake demanded. They will not intervene. The Zarn Collective operates outside Coalition space. They are not bound by the treaty. Military action against them would violate our principles of peace. Lisa spun in her chair. What about the Keltharians? What about their principles? The Council suggests diplomatic negotiations, Vryn continued. A delegation will be sent to discuss the matter with the Zarn leadership. How long will that take? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. Several months, perhaps years. The Zarn must be willing to negotiate. Kevin's voice was low and dangerous. And the people they just took? Vryn said nothing. Jake watched the last Zarn ship leave, its holds full of stolen lives. The Treaty of Eternal Peace, the document that every coalition species had signed, the sacred law that governed 847 different races, meant nothing out here. It only restricted those who followed it. Take us back to Patrol Route 7, Jake ordered. His voice sounded hollow even to himself. As the Liberty turned away from Refuge Station, Jake made a decision. He walked to his ready room and began writing a message. It went to every human ship captain in the fleet, every colony governor, every person who still remembered what humanity used to be. The message was simple. We need to talk about the treaty. Over the next week, responses flooded in. Captain Linda Hayes of the Frontier had watched a research station burn while her weapons stayed cold. Commander Paul Bennett of the Horizon had evacuated a mining colony just hours before the Zarn arrived. Every human ship had a similar story. Everyone was reaching the same breaking point. The Treaty of Eternal Peace had seemed like a gift when humanity first joined the coalition. No more wars. No more conflict. Just peaceful exploration and cooperation among the stars. But now Jake understood the price. Peace bought with the suffering of others wasn't peace at all. It was just looking away while evil did its work. He thought about Earth. His home world. Class 12. Deathworld. The aliens called it. A planet where everything tried to kill you, where humans evolved by fighting, competing, surviving against impossible odds. The Coalition had asked humanity to forget all of that, to pretend they were something they weren't. For 15 years, humanity had tried. They'd buried their warrior past. They'd followed every rule. They'd become the peaceful species the galaxy wanted them to be. Jake looked at the stars outside his window and wondered how much longer that could last. 3 months passed, and the attacks got worse. The Zarn grew bolder with every raid. They knew the Coalition wouldn't fight back. They knew the treaty protected them better than any shield. Jake received reports almost daily now. The Frontier had watched helplessly as the Zarn destroyed a civilian transport. The Horizon arrived too late to save a colony of scientists. Other human ships told similar stories. Across Coalition space, humans were being ordered to stand down while innocent beings suffered. The Liberty patrolled the outer sectors, and the crew grew quieter with each passing day. They did their jobs, followed their orders, but something had changed. Kevin barely spoke anymore. Lisa's usual cheerfulness had faded. Even Danny, who always had a joke ready, worked in silence. "Captain, incoming transmission from Fleet Command," Lisa said one morning. Her voice was flat, mechanical. Jake took the call in his ready room. Admiral Karen Hughes appeared on his screen. She was in her 60s, a veteran who'd served in Earth's Navy before the Coalition. Her face looked tired. "Jake, I need you to divert to the sanctuary system. There's a medical transport there, the Healing Light. Intelligence suggests the Zarn might target it." "What's the transport carrying?" Jake asked. 3,000 civilians being evacuated from the border zones. 800 of them are children. The Admiral paused. "The Council has been notified. They're sending observers." Jake felt ice in his stomach. "Observers won't help if the Zarn attack." "I know, But those are our orders. Get there fast, Captain. Maybe your presence will be enough to scare them off. The Liberty made the jump to Sanctuary System in record time. Danny pushed the engines harder than recommended, and nobody complained. They arrived to find the healing light moving slowly through space, its medical markings bright against its white hull. No sign of Zarn ships, Kevin reported. Maybe they changed their minds. Then the sensors screamed. 6 Zarn vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel, surrounding the medical transport. They'd been waiting, hiding in the system's asteroid field. Battle stations, Jake ordered. The words felt strange. The Liberty didn't have battle stations. Not officially. But his crew knew what he meant. The Zarn didn't bother with communication this time. They opened fire immediately, targeting the healing light's engines. The transport shuddered under the attack, its shields failing. They're boarding, Lisa said, her voice shaking. The Zarn are sending troops onto the medical ship. Amy's hands flew over her medical console. I'm picking up the transport's internal sensors. The Zarn are moving toward the civilian sections. The children are there. Jake heard screaming over the open channel. Children's voices, terrified and confused. A mother begging for mercy. A doctor trying to reason with the Zarn soldiers. Captain, Kevin said softly. We have weapons lock on all 6 Zarn ships. Our shields are up. We can end this in 2 minutes. Vryn moved to stand beside Jake's chair. Captain Morrison, the treaty is clear. You cannot engage in hostile action. Those are children, Jake said. The Council is aware of the situation. They are evaluating options. How long will that take? Vryn hesitated. I do not know. Lisa looked back at Jake, her eyes pleading. Danny had tears running down his face. Kevin's hand hovered over the weapons controls. Amy was listening to the screams from the medical transport, her whole body shaking. Jake thought about the treaty. He thought about Earth's place in the coalition. He thought about everything humanity had given up to be part of this galactic community. Then he thought about the 800 children about to be taken by slavers. Kevin, Jake said quietly, disable those Zarn ships. Target their engines and weapons only. I want them unable to fight, not destroyed. Sir, the treaty, Vryn began. I heard you the first time, Jake interrupted. Kevin, fire. The Liberty's weapons came to life. Humanity had designed these systems in secret, upgrading the basic defensive equipment the Coalition allowed. They'd spent 15 years quietly preparing for a day like this, hoping it would never come. The Zarn ships never had a chance. Human targeting systems, evolved from centuries of warfare, locked onto each vessel with perfect precision. Energy beams struck engines and weapon ports. The Zarn ships went dark, floating helplessly in space. Sending a message to the Zarn boarding party, Lisa said. Telling them to surrender, or we'll disable their escape craft too. The Zarn troops abandoned their attack, fleeing back to their ships. Within minutes, they were gone, limping away on emergency power. The healing light was safe. 3,000 lives saved, 800 children who would go home to their families. The bridge was silent. Jake's crew looked at him with a mixture of pride and fear. They'd just violated the treaty. They'd committed the greatest crime in Coalition law. Vryn stood frozen, his face unreadable. Finally, he spoke. Captain Jake Morrison, by the authority of the Galactic Council, I place you under arrest. You are charged with crimes against peace. The Liberty is ordered to return immediately to Council Station Alpha for tribunal. I understand, Jake said. He didn't regret his choice. He couldn't. Those children were alive because he'd acted. Captain, transmission coming in from the healing light, Lisa said. On screen, a Torvian doctor appeared. Her fur was matted with blood, but her eyes were bright with tears. Captain Morrison, you saved us. You saved the children. Thank you. Thank you. Jake nodded. Just doing what needed to be done. Just doing what needed to be done. As the Liberty turned toward Council Station Alpha, Jake sent out another message to the human fleet. This one was shorter than the first. I broke the treaty. They're taking me to trial. Whatever happens next, remember why we did this. Responses came within hours. Linda Hayes sent a simple message. We stand with you. Paul Bennett wrote. About time someone did something. Messages poured in from human colonies across Coalition space. Civilians, ship captains, governors, all saying the same thing. They were tired of watching. Tired of being helpless. Tired of pretending that peace meant letting evil win. The journey to Council Station Alpha took 3 days. During that time, something unexpected happened. The news spread. Other species heard what the humans had done. They heard about the children saved, about the Liberty's defiance. The Keltharians sent a formal statement supporting Jake's actions. The Torvians did the same. Even some Vorquin citizens, members of the powerful species that led the council, spoke out quietly. They'd all lost people to the Zarn. They'd all suffered under the council's policy of absolute non-intervention. On the second day, Jake received a coded message from Admiral Hughes. It contained files, thousands of them. Financial records, communication logs, shipping manifests. The Admiral had been investigating for months. What she found changed everything. The Zarn weren't just random raiders. They were being supplied by someone inside the Coalition. Ships, weapons, information about vulnerable targets, all provided by corrupt officials who profited from the slave trade. The Treaty of Eternal Peace wasn't protecting anyone. It was providing cover for criminals who knew their victims couldn't fight back. Jake stared at the evidence, his hands shaking. The treaty was a lie. The whole system was broken. Lisa. Copy these files. Send them to every human ship, every colony, every news organization that will take them. Captain, that will cause chaos, Vryn warned. The Council will see it as an attack. Good, Jake said. Maybe it's time for some chaos. The Liberty arrived at Council Station Alpha to find a crowd waiting. Protesters from dozens of species lined the docking bay. Some carried signs supporting Jake. Others demanded his punishment. The galaxy was watching. As Jake was escorted to his holding cell, he passed a viewing screen showing news coverage. The evidence was spreading faster than the Council could contain it. Species were demanding answers. The Vorquin Imperium was facing questions about the corruption within their ranks. The Grand Chamber of Harmony was enormous. Jake had never seen a room so large. It orbited the Council's capital world, a station built specifically for important trials and gatherings. Seats rose in circles around a central platform, where Jake now stood. Surrounded by representatives from 847 different species, the chamber was full. Every seat was taken. And millions more watched on screens across the galaxy. This wasn't just a trial anymore. It had become something bigger. Council Arbiter Theln presided over the proceedings. He was Vorquin, like most council leaders. Tall and elegant, with silver skin and 4 arms. His voice echoed through the chamber. Captain Jake Morrison, you stand accused of crimes against peace. You violated the Treaty of Eternal Peace by engaging in military action against the Zarn Collective. How do you answer these charges? Jake stood straight. Guilty. I did exactly what they say I did. A murmur ran through the crowd. Helen Carter, his defense attorney, touched his arm. She was human, one of Earth's best lawyers, sent specifically for this trial. She'd wanted him to plead differently, but Jake refused to lie. You admit your crime? Theln asked. I admit I fired on the Zarn ships, Jake said. Whether that's a crime, well, that depends on how you look at it. The prosecution began their case. They showed footage from the Liberty's encounter with the Zarn. The view screen displayed the human ship firing its weapons. The Zarn vessels going dark. They made it look cold and calculated. The prosecutor was a Sylvian named Kess. Her voice was sharp as she addressed the chamber. Captain Morrison violated the sacred treaty that keeps our galaxy at peace. He chose violence over diplomacy. He chose aggression over patience. If we allow this behavior, we risk returning to the dark ages of warfare and conflict. Kess showed more footage, images of ancient wars between coalition species. Planets destroyed, billions dead. This is what the treaty saved us from. This is what Captain Morrison's actions threatened to bring back. The chamber fell silent. The images were horrible. Jake understood why so many species feared war. They'd suffered through it, lost entire civilizations to it. But then Helen Carter stood up. "May I present evidence for the defense?" Theln nodded. The view screen changed. Now it showed the healing light, the medical transport. It showed the Zarn attacking. The footage came from the transport's own cameras. And it was brutal. Zarn soldiers moved through the ship. They grabbed civilians, dragged them toward their boarding craft. A mother held her child, begging. A soldier struck her down. The child screamed. The chamber went very quiet. Helen let the footage play. She showed the Zarn loading people onto their ships like cargo. She showed the moment when the Liberty's weapons fired. The Zarn ships going dark. The boarding party fleeing. She showed the children being reunited with their parents after the attack ended. "This is what Captain Morrison saved," Helen said quietly. 3,000 lives. 800 children. All of them would be slaves right now if he'd followed the treaty. "The treaty does not permit violence regardless of circumstances," Kess argued. "The council could have negotiated." "How long would negotiations take?" Helen interrupted. "Hours? Days? Those children didn't have that time." Captain Morrison made a choice. Save lives now, or follow rules and let innocents suffer. The debate continued for hours. Representatives from different species stood to speak. Some condemned Jake's actions. Others supported him. The chamber was divided. Then something unexpected happened. A Keltharian representative stood. Her name was Mara, and she'd lost her family to the Zarn 3 months ago. "I watched human ships stand by while my world burned," Mara said. Her voice shook. "They had weapons. They had the power to help. But the treaty forbade it. So they watched. My children were taken. My mate was killed. The council did nothing." She turned to face Theln directly. "The treaty protects us from each other. But who protects us from those outside the coalition? Who saves us when the council refuses to act?" More representatives stood. Torvians spoke about lost colonies. Drethians described watching their research stations destroyed. Even some Vorquin citizens rose to share stories of suffering while the council debated. Jake listened, realizing for the first time how many species had been hurt by the policy of absolute non-intervention. The treaty had become a shield for criminals and a cage for victims. During the lunch recess, Helen pulled Jake aside. "We need to present the Admiral's evidence, the files showing Vorquin corruption." "Not yet," Jake said. "Let them finish the trial first. Let them show everyone how broken the system is." When court resumed, it was Jake's turn to testify. He walked to the center platform and looked up at the hundreds of faces watching him. "I want to tell you about Earth," he began. "My homeworld. The Coalition calls it a Class 12 death world. Do you know what that means?" He didn't wait for an answer. "It means everything on Earth wants to kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the bacteria. Humans evolved on a planet that was actively trying to end us. We survived by being tough, by fighting back, by refusing to give up." Jake's voice grew stronger. "The Coalition asked us to forget all that. They asked us to be peaceful, to follow the treaty, to never fight. And we tried. For 15 years. We tried. We buried our history. We changed our culture. We became what you wanted us to be." He paused, looking directly at Theln. "But you know what? Some things are worth fighting for. Those children on the healing light were worth it. The Keltharians on Refuge Station were worth it. Every innocent being suffering, while the council debates, is worth it." "You speak of worth," Theln said. "But who decides when violence is justified? If everyone made their own decisions, we would have chaos." "You're right," Jake said. "That's why we have laws. But laws that protect criminals while punishing those who save lives aren't justice. They're just rules designed to keep certain people in power. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded Jake's immediate expulsion. Others called for treaty reform. Theln struggled to restore order. Finally, he raised all four arms. Silence. This court will have order. When the noise died down, Jake spoke again. I have evidence I'd like to present. Information about who's really behind the Zarn attacks. Helen activated the view screen. The Admiral's files appeared, page after page of evidence. Financial transactions showing Vorquin nobles funding the Zarn. Communication logs proving they'd provided targeting information for raids. Shipping manifests of weapons and supplies sent to the collective. The chamber went completely silent. The Treaty of Eternal Peace, Jake said quietly, has been used as cover for slave trading. Corrupt officials profit while innocents suffer. They knew the coalition wouldn't fight back. They counted on it. Theln's face had gone pale. These accusations are documented, Helen interrupted. Every transaction verified. Every communication traced. The evidence is irrefutable. Chaos descended on the Grand Chamber. Representatives demanded investigations. The Vorquin delegation tried to leave, but security blocked the exits. News organizations broadcast the evidence across the galaxy. Within hours, protests erupted on the capital world below. Vorquin citizens, learning of their government's corruption, took to the streets. Other species joined them. The coalition was fracturing. Theln adjourned the trial. This court will reconvene in 3 days. Until then, Captain Morrison will remain in custody. As guards escorted Jake back to his cell, he passed viewing screens showing the galaxy in turmoil. Species were choosing sides. Some demanded the treaty's enforcement, regardless of corruption. Others called for complete reform. A few suggested the coalition itself should be dissolved. Lisa, Danny, Amy, and Kevin were waiting in the corridor outside his cell. They'd been released to the Liberty but had stayed at the station. You did it, Captain, Lisa said. The whole galaxy knows the truth now. Knowing isn't enough, Jake replied. We need change. That night, messages flooded in from across coalition space. Human ships reported increased Zarn activity. The collective, seeing the coalition in chaos, was launching more raids. They were taking advantage of the confusion. Admiral Hughes sent a priority transmission. Jake, the situation is deteriorating. The Council is paralyzed. The Zarn are attacking everywhere. We need permission to act. The Council was falling apart. Jake watched from his cell as news reports showed protests spreading across coalition space. Vorquin nobles were being arrested. The Imperium's leadership was in chaos. Species that had suffered in silence were now demanding answers. But while the Council argued about corruption and treaty violations, the Zarn were moving. They'd launched the largest offensive in their history, attacking 20 systems simultaneously. Without unified coalition resistance, they were winning. Jake's trial resumed on the 3rd day. But the chamber was only half full. Many representatives had returned to their homeworlds to deal with the crisis. Theln looked exhausted, his silver skin dull. Captain Morrison, Theln began. Given the current situation, this court has decided. Alarms blared through the station. Emergency broadcasts interrupted the trial. A Zarn fleet had been spotted heading toward the capital world. 40 ships, the largest force anyone had ever seen. The chamber erupted in panic. Representatives rushed for the exits. Security personnel scrambled to defensive positions. The station shook as shields powered up. Theln tried to restore order, but it was useless. Within minutes, the Grand Chamber was empty, except for Jake, his guards, and a few remaining officials. Helen Carter rushed to his side. The Council is evacuating. They're abandoning the capital. What about the civilians on the planet below? Jake asked. There are 12 million people down there. They can't evacuate everyone in time. Jake looked at his guards. Let me contact my ship, please. The Liberty can help. The guards looked at each other uncertainly. Finally, one nodded. "Make it quick." The communication connected. Lisa answered immediately. "Captain, thank God. What are your orders?" "Where's the Liberty now?" "Docked at the station. We've been on standby since you were arrested. Get to the capital world. Help with the evacuation." "Sir, we're one ship. We can't evacuate millions." "I know. But we can buy them time." Jake paused. "Is the crew with me on this?" "Captain." Danny's voice came through. "We've been ready since day one." "Just give the word." Jake turned to the guards. "I need to be released. My ship can help defend the planet. You're under arrest for violating the treaty," one guard said. "The treaty doesn't matter if everyone's dead." The guards looked at each other again. Then, surprisingly, they unlocked his restraints. "Go! Save our people," Jake ran. The station corridors were packed with fleeing officials. He pushed through the crowd, making his way to the docking bay. Helen followed him. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Whatever it takes." The Liberty's engines were already warming up when Jake reached the bridge. His crew looked at him with relief and determination. "Status report," Jake ordered, sliding into his command chair like he'd never left. 40 Zarn ships approaching the capital world, Kevin said. "They'll be in weapons range in 15 minutes. The planet's defenses are minimal. Most coalition military vessels are scattered across the galaxy. Are there any other ships here that can fight?" Lisa checked her sensors. "The Frontier just arrived. Captain Linda Hayes is requesting permission to join us. The Horizon is 10 minutes out. 3 ships against 40. The odds were terrible. But Jake had learned something over the past few weeks. Sometimes you didn't fight because you could win. You fought because it was right. Signal the Frontier and Horizon. We're forming a defensive line between the Zarn and the planet. "Captain, we'll be destroyed," Amy said quietly. "Maybe. But we'll give those people below a chance to escape." Jake opened a channel to the planet. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Liberty. We're moving to intercept the Zarn fleet. Begin emergency evacuations immediately." The Liberty broke from the station, the Frontier beside it. Paul Bennett's voice came over the comm from the Horizon as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. "Good to see you, Jake. Thought you might need backup. Glad to have you, Paul. Both of you, listen up. We can't win this fight. Our goal is to slow them down, give the civilians time to evacuate." "Understood," Linda said. "We've been waiting for this." The 3 human ships formed a line, small dots of light against the darkness of space. Behind them, the capital world began its desperate evacuation. Transport ships lifted from the surface, carrying as many people as they could. The Zarn fleet appeared on sensors. 40 ships, each one larger than the Liberty. They moved in perfect formation, confident and unstoppable. Jake opened a channel. "Zarn fleet, this is Captain Morrison. Turn back now." The Zarn commander's face appeared on screen. It was the same one from Refuge Station. "The human who breaks treaties. You have 3 ships. We have 40. Move aside or be destroyed." "We're not moving." The Zarn commander laughed. "Then you will die for nothing. The coalition has already fled. No one is coming to help you." The transmission ended. The Zarn fleet accelerated, weapons charging. "Danny, transfer all available power to shields," Jake ordered. "Kevin, target their lead ships. Lisa, coordinate with the Frontier and Horizon. We focus fire. Take them down one at a time." The battle began. The Zarn opened fire first. Energy weapons lit up the space between the 2 forces. The Liberty's shields took hit after hit, lights flickering on the bridge. Jake gripped his chair as the ship shook. "Return fire," he commanded. The 3 human ships unleashed everything they had. Their weapons, upgraded in secret over 15 years, proved their worth. The first Zarn ship exploded, torn apart by concentrated fire. The second lost its engines and drifted away, but there were still 38 more. "Shields at 60%, Danny reported. "Port side taking heavy damage." "The Frontier's shields are failing," Lisa said. "They're pulling back." Jake watched the Frontier retreat, smoke pouring from its hull. Linda had done her part. Now it was just the Liberty and the Horizon against the remaining Zarn fleet. "How long until the evacuation is complete?" Jake asked. Amy checked the planetary communications. "They need 20 more minutes." 20 minutes. Jake looked at the tactical display. The Zarn were surrounding them, cutting off escape routes. The Liberty couldn't last that long. Then something appeared on sensors. 1 ship, then 10, then 100. Ships from across the coalition, arriving to join the fight. Keltharians, Torvians, Drethians. Even some Vorquin vessels. They'd heard about the battle and come to help. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions," Lisa said, her voice full of wonder. "They're asking for your orders." Jake stared at the screen. Hundreds of ships, species that had never fought before, now willing to stand against the Zarn. The treaty had kept them peaceful for so long. But watching 3 human ships fight alone had changed something. "All ships," Jake broadcast, "form defensive positions around the planet. Protect the evacuation transports. We're going to hold this line." The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. Coalition ships, designed for peace and exploration, fought with desperate courage. The Zarn, expecting easy victory, found themselves facing unified resistance for the first time. Jake coordinated the defense, using tactics humans had developed over centuries of warfare. He organized the coalition ships into groups, each protecting the other's weaknesses. He taught them to focus fire, to use cover, to sacrifice small advantages for strategic positioning. The Zarn lost ship after ship. Their perfect formation broke apart. Their confidence shattered. They'd fought peaceful species before. Victims who couldn't fight back. They'd never faced an organized defense. Finally, with half their fleet destroyed and the rest damaged, the Zarn retreated. They jumped to faster-than-light travel and disappeared, leaving the coalition victorious. The Liberty's bridge erupted in cheers. Danny hugged Lisa. Amy was crying with relief. Kevin laughed. The first time he'd smiled in months. "Status of the evacuation?" Jake asked. "Complete," Amy reported. "All 12 million civilians are safe." The summit was held on Earth, in New Washington. Jake stood in the rebuilt city, looking at the skyline. It had been months since the battle at the Capital World, months of negotiations, debates, and slow change. Representatives from every coalition species walked the streets of Earth for the first time. They saw humanity's home world, the deadly planet that had shaped such unusual people. Some were frightened, others were fascinated. The summit hall was massive, built specifically for this occasion. Inside, 847 species gathered to reshape their galaxy. The Vorkin Imperium, humbled by the corruption scandal, no longer held absolute power. The council had been restructured, leadership distributed among many species. Jake sat in the human delegation, beside Admiral Hughes and Ambassador Ryan Parker. His trial had been quietly dismissed. The charges dropped. Some called him a hero. Others still viewed him as a dangerous rebel. Jake didn't care much about either label. Council Arbiter Thelm, still holding his position despite everything, called the summit to order. "We gather to address the Treaty of Eternal Peace. Recent events have shown that our absolute commitment to nonviolence has created vulnerabilities. The Zarn Collective exploited these weaknesses, and innocent beings suffered." The debate began immediately. Some species wanted to maintain the treaty exactly as written. They feared that any change would lead back to war. Others demanded complete military freedom, arguing that the treaty had failed. Ambassador Parker stood to speak for humanity. He was younger than Jake, a diplomat who'd spent his career building bridges between Earth and the Coalition. "We're not asking you to abandon peace. We're asking you to defend it," a Sylvian representative objected. "Defense and aggression are separated by only intention. How do we ensure military forces aren't misused?" "You can't," Jake said, standing up. He wasn't supposed to speak, but Parker nodded permission. "There's no perfect system. But what you had before wasn't working. The treaty protected criminals and punished those who tried to help. So we should allow violence? A Keltharian asked. We should allow defense? Jake replied. We should allow intervention when innocent beings are suffering. We should stop pretending that refusing to fight makes us moral, when all it does is let evil win. The debate continued for days. Species argued about definitions, about oversight, about the balance between peace and security. Slowly, painfully, a compromise emerged. The Accord of Protected Peace would replace the old treaty. The new agreement maintained the commitment to peaceful resolution, but included provisions for defensive action. A coalition defense force would be established, trained to respond to threats outside their borders. Most importantly, species could act to protect innocent lives without automatic punishment. But the real change came in how the accord would be enforced. The old council system, where the Vorquin made most decisions, was replaced by a democratic assembly. Every species had equal representation. Major decisions required majority approval. Jake watched as the vote was called. One by one, species cast their decision. Some voted against, still fearful of change, but most voted in favor. The accord passed with 731 votes supporting it. The galaxy had chosen change. After the vote, there was celebration in the streets of New Washington. Coalition representatives mingled with human civilians, sharing stories and building friendships. The distrust that had existed for so long was beginning to fade. Linda Hayes found Jake at a viewing platform overlooking the city. "Quite a sight," she said. "Never thought I'd see aliens celebrating on Earth. Never thought we'd change the treaty," Jake replied. "What are you going to do now?" "The Admiral offered you a promotion. Command of the new defense force." Jake had considered it. Leading humanity's contribution to coalition security seemed like the logical next step, but after months of politics and negotiations, he missed simpler things. "I'm going back to the Liberty. Back to exploration. After everything you've done, you want to go back to patrolling empty space? Someone needs to. And my crew deserves to get back to what we do best." Linda smiled. "I heard Paul's doing the same. Guess some of us aren't cut out for desk jobs." The next few months were busy. The Coalition Defense Force was established, with bases on multiple worlds. Human instructors trained recruits from species that had never fought before. They taught tactics, strategy, and something more important: how to protect without becoming oppressors. Jake watched young Keltharians learning hand-to-hand combat, Torvians practicing weapon systems, even Vorquin citizens, determined to rebuild their species' reputation, training alongside former enemies. The training academy on Earth became a symbol of the new coalition, different species working together. The Zarn Collective, faced with organized resistance, agreed to negotiations. Their leadership was replaced, the slave trade dismantled. Former colonies were liberated and given aid to rebuild. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was progress. Jake received one last summons before returning to space. Admiral Hughes wanted to see him at Fleet Command. "Commodore Morrison," she said when he arrived, using his new rank, "I have new orders for you. I thought I was going back to exploration." "You are. But we're reorganizing the fleet. The Liberty will lead the first response squadron. You'll explore, but you'll also respond to emergencies, places where people need help." Jake considered this. It was different from simple exploration, but it made sense. "What's the squadron composition?" 10 ships, all captained by people who stood with you. Linda, Paul, and 7 others. You'll have support from the Defense Force when needed, but operational independence otherwise." It was perfect. Jake could return to space, to the work he loved, but now without the chains that had bound him before. "When do we leave?" 2 weeks. Your crew is already preparing the Liberty." Jake returned to the Liberty to find it transformed. Danny and his engineering team had completed the weapon upgrades openly now. No more hiding. Amy had expanded the medical facilities, prepared to handle any emergency. Kevin had trained a full security team. Lisa had mapped out their first patrol route. "Welcome back, Captain," Lisa said as he stepped onto the bridge. Sorry, Commodore. Captain is fine, Jake said. At least on this ship. The day before departure, Jake visited the memorial that had been built in New Washington. It honored all those who died in Zarn attacks, all the lives lost while the old treaty remained in force. Thousands of names were carved into black stone, representing dozens of species. Mara, the Keltharian who'd testified at his trial, found him there. My family's names are here, she said quietly. My mate. My children. I'm sorry we didn't act sooner, Jake said. You acted when it mattered. You showed the galaxy that peace requires courage, not cowardice. She touched the memorial. Because of you. No more names will be added. That's all I wanted. The Liberty departed Earth on a clear morning. The first response squadron formed up around it, 10 ships ready for whatever the galaxy would throw at them. They jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading toward the frontier. The first weeks were quiet. They explored new systems, cataloged planets, made peaceful contact with 2 new species. It felt like the old days, before everything changed. Then the distress call came. A colony on the border was under attack. Not Zarn this time, but a different threat. Pirates raiding for supplies. The colony had minimal defenses, no way to fight back. How far away are we? Jake asked. 30 minutes at maximum speed, Lisa replied. Jake didn't hesitate. All ships, set course for the colony, combat speed. The squadron arrived to find 3 pirate vessels harassing the settlement. The pirates saw the coalition ships and prepared to flee. This is Commodore Morrison of the First Response Squadron, Jake broadcast. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning. The pirates made the mistake of opening fire. It was a brief fight. The squadron disabled all 3 ships within minutes. No shots wasted, no unnecessary destruction. The pirates surrendered. As the Liberty's crew helped repair damage to the colony, the settlement's governor approached Jake. She was Drethian, her scales showing the blue pattern of deep gratitude. You saved us. The old coalition would have sent observers and negotiators. By the time they arrived, we'd have been dead. That's why we're here, Jake said. To make sure that doesn't happen anymore. Over the following months, the First Response Squadron became famous across the frontier. They stopped raids, rescued stranded ships, and responded to disasters. Other coalition species started forming their own response teams, inspired by the human example. Jake stood on the Liberty's observation deck one evening, watching the stars. Amy joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Thinking about how far we've come? She asked. Thinking about how much further we have to go, Jake replied. The galaxy's changing. But change is slow. It's faster than it was. A year ago, we couldn't defend anyone. Now look at us. Jake smiled. You're right. We're not perfect, but we're better. An alert sounded. Lisa's voice came over the intercom. Captain, we're receiving a distress call from the sanctuary system. A transport is reporting engine failure and requesting assistance. Jake and Amy exchanged a look. Just another day in the new coalition. On our way, Jake responded. Tell them help is coming. The Liberty's engines powered up. And the ship leaped toward those who needed them. Because that's what the galaxy needed now. Not warriors seeking conquest. Not pacifists hiding from evil, but protectors willing to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. The Treaty of Eternal Peace was gone, replaced by something stronger. The Accord of Protected Peace recognized a truth humanity had always known. Sometimes, the most peaceful thing you can do is refuse to let bad things happen to good people. Jake watched the stars streak past as they raced to another rescue. His crew worked around him, confident and capable. The Liberty, once forced to watch while others suffered, now stood as a guardian. The galaxy had asked humanity what would happen if you told Deathworlders they couldn't fight back. The answer was simple. They'd fight anyway. Not for conquest or glory, but for something more important. They'd fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. And they'd never stop. No matter who told them they should. Because that's what it meant to be human. That's what it meant to come from a world that tried to kill you every day. You learned to survive, to adapt, and most importantly, to protect. The Liberty disappeared into faster-than-light travel, rushing toward another emergency, another chance to make the galaxy a little safer. Behind them, the Coalition continued to change, shaped by the example of the species from the deadly blue world. And across the frontier, in colonies and stations and ships, beings of all species slept a little easier, knowing that somewhere out there, the humans were watching. The Deathworlders were standing guard, ready to fight back. Jake slumped in his chair, exhausted. They'd done it. They'd saved the capital world. "Captain, transmission from Admiral Hughes," Lisa said. The Admiral appeared on screen, and she was smiling. "Jake, I'm watching the news coverage from Earth. You just became the most famous human in the galaxy. I just wanted to save those people. You did more than that. You showed the Coalition what they could be, what they should have been all along." The Admiral's expression grew serious. "The Council is requesting a summit. They want to discuss treaty reforms, and they specifically asked for human participation." Jake looked at his crew, at the damaged but victorious Liberty, at the Coalition ships still surrounding the planet. "Tell them, we'll be there. But this time, we're done asking permission to do the right thing." The galaxy had changed. The Treaty of Eternal Peace would never be the same. And humanity had proven what Deathworlders could do when you finally stopped telling them they couldn't fight back. "You're asking the wrong person," Jake said. "I'm on trial. Then I'm asking you as a human being. Our people are suffering. Other species are suffering. Do we keep waiting for the Council? Or do we do what needs to be done?" Jake thought about the treaty. About Earth's place in the Coalition. About everything that could go wrong if humanity acted without permission. Then he thought about those children on the healing light. About Mara's family, taken by the Zarn while human ships watched. About every innocent being who'd suffered because good people had been ordered to do nothing. "Karen," Jake said quietly, "do what you think is right. Whatever happens, I'll stand by you." The Admiral nodded. That's all I needed to hear. In his cell, Jake waited for the trial to resume. But he knew the real decision had already been made. The galaxy was changing, whether the Council wanted it to or not, and humanity was done asking permission to save lives. In his cell, Jake sat and waited. His trial would begin soon. He might be found guilty. Earth might be expelled from the Coalition. But at least people knew the truth now. The Treaty of Eternal Peace had seemed like humanity's salvation. Now it looked more like a cage, built to keep the dangerous species quiet, while others profited from suffering. Jake thought about Earth again. His home world, where humans learned to survive by fighting back, where they'd made terrible mistakes, fought awful wars, but eventually learned to protect the weak and stand against bullies. The galaxy had asked humans to forget all that, to become something gentler, softer, more civilized. But maybe, Jake thought, the galaxy needed to remember what humans really were. Not conquerors or warmongers, but a species that refused to stand by while others suffered. A species that would break any rule, face any punishment, if it meant saving lives. The trial would come, the consequences would follow. But those children on the healing light were safe. And sometimes, that had to be enough. In his quarters, Kevin Ross cleaned his old service weapon, a relic from Earth's military days, kept hidden in violation of regulations. On the engineering deck, Danny Price studied weapon system designs, making notes about upgrades that could be made if someone ever had the courage to install them. In the medical bay, Amy Watson prepared trauma kits, more than the ship should ever need if the treaty held. The Liberty continued its patrol, and Jake waited. Sooner or later, something would have to break. You couldn't tell humans they couldn't fight back and expect them to obey forever. Not when people needed saving.